In the days when Camelot still felt like a sunrise, when banners snapped in the wind like bright vows and round tables still held together like a single, unbroken ring, people told stories about knights the way we tell stories about heroes now. They talk about courage, they talk about glory, they talk about battles where steels flashed like lightning and men rode into danger as if fear were only a rumor. But if you listen closely to the Arthurian tradition, really listen, you begin to notice something strange. The stories don't reward what we assume they reward, and they don't punish what we assume they punish. Because in these tales, victory in battle is never the final verdict. A knight may win the field and still lose himself. A knight may wear the brightest armor in the court and still carry a darkness that cracks the fellowship from within. Arthurian legend, at its heart, is not merely about what a knight can do, or even how strong and skillful he is. It's about his heart. And the tradition keeps returning again and again to 7 virtues, not as a flat checklist, not as a slogan, but as a moral architecture, a structure of the soul, a structure of the kingdom, a structure of the entire world Camelot is trying to build. These are the 7 knightly virtues, what the stories reward and punish. Hey everyone, this is Logo's Journey. Welcome to the first episode of Arthurian Legends, a new series where we return to the old stories of King Arthur and his knights, not just to retell them, but to ask what they had to say about virtue, character, and the way we live our lives today. Let's get into it. It's difficult to talk about Arthurian legend without also talking about the virtues, because the virtues is woven into the very fabric of the stories. The texts do not always discuss these virtues explicitly, but they are present implicitly, shaping the characters, their choices, and the conflicts they face. Across the many different versions of the Arthurian tradition, certain virtues appear again and again. They form part of what I call the moral framework that guides the legends. So what are they? At the top are the high virtues, purity and humility. The virtues most closely stand with the Grail. In the middle are the structured virtues, justice, mercy, and loyalty, the code that keeps Camelot from devouring itself. And at the foundation are the disciplinary virtues, temperance and meekness of heart, the steady habits that keep power from going rotten. So let's begin at the summit. At the very top of the knightly hierarchy are 2 virtues, the ones that the Grail seems to recognize before anything else. First, sitting at the very top of the hierarchy is purity. Purity in Arthurian tradition is not simply innocence. It's not only the absence of scandal. Purity here is about a knight's heart, a heart that's not divided against itself, desire aligning with truth, and love aligning with duty. Its role is simple and terrifying. Purity is a gate to the Grail. Many knights can be admirable, few can be clean enough to see it. Think of the Grail quest itself. So many riders, so many vows, and yet the holiest vision does not yield to strength, fame, or even good intentions. We'll explore more about what the tradition means by a clean heart, and why the stories treat inner division as a silent killer of spiritual greatness in a future episode. And beside purity, the second high virtue is humility. Humility is not timidity. It's not self-hatred. It's a refusal to place a self at the center of the moral universe. The quiet knowledge that glory is not the point, only the shadow cast by something deeper. Its role is to keep the knight governable by truth, by repentance, by God, by the demands of love. Humility makes greatness safe. Camelot is full of praise and comparison. A knight can mistake applause for holiness. Humility is what breaks that spell. Now we descend from the summit virtues, the virtues of spiritual perfection, into the virtues that hold Camelot together. Because Camelot is not only a spiritual dream, it is a social order. At the center of Camelot's moral structure sits justice. Justice is the moral shape of action. It's knowing when force is rightful, and when force is merely power wearing a crown. Justice asks not only can you fight, but should you? Its role is to govern the sword. Justice tells the knight when to ride out and when to stay his hand. Arthurian tales are full of duels. The question is always why. The same blow can be righteous, defense, or proud performance depending on its cause. But justice alone can turn harsh. So the next virtue is mercy. Mercy is restrained at the exact moment you could crush. It's a choice to spare, to accept surrender, to refuse humiliation, to remember that the defeated enemy is still human. Its role is to keep justice from becoming cruelty and to keep wars from becoming endless. Mercy preserves the possibility of reconciliation. In these stories, mercy is often the difference between a knight and a monster, because only someone who truly has the power can choose not to use it. And then comes the low-bearing bond of the Round Table: loyalty, fidelity to king, vow, and fellowship. Loyalty is a real virtue, and Camelot cannot exist without it. It binds the strong into one moral project instead of 1,000 private wars, and it makes a fellowship possible in the first place. Its role is political and communal. Loyalty holds the realm together until it doesn't. Here lies the danger. Loyalty can become disorder. It can harden into fixation. Again and again, the Arthurian tales warn us. What should bind the kingdom together can, when twisted, become the very force that tears it apart. And beneath the structural virtues is the final layer: the daily disciplines that keep power from turning rotten. Now we move into the discipline of the knight's inner life. First among them is temperance. Temperance is self-mastery, not the killing of desire, but the ordering of it, governing appetite, anger, ambition, and impulse, so the knight isn't driven by the very powers he claims to command. Its role is eternal stability. Temperance keeps strength from turning savage and emotion from becoming destiny. A temperate knight can be provoked and still remain himself. An intemperate knight can be praised and still become worse. And finally, the virtue that tells us how power must be born: meekness, and perhaps the most misunderstood virtue today. Meekness of heart is power submitted to God. If mercy is restrained toward the defeated enemy, meekness of heart is a quiet inner rule that keeps strength from hardening into pride, wrath, or self-assertion. It is not weakness, but disciplined strength made gentle through humility. Its role is posture. Meekness of heart tells us how a knight holds power before he ever uses it. Without it, knighthood becomes spectacle, strength exercised for glory rather than offer in service to God, justice, and the good of others. The most telling question in the Arthurian world is not how strong is a knight, but who is safer because he exists. So these are the 7 virtues: purity, humility, justice, mercy, loyalty, temperance, meekness. And if you remember nothing else, remember this: Camelot does not fall simply because her enemies are strong. Camelot falls because virtues become disorder, because the lower virtues override the higher virtues, because loyalty hardens into vengeance, because justice forgets mercy, because strength forgets compassion, because pride blocks repentance, and because the heart becomes divided. That is what makes these stories so haunting and so enduring. They're not merely tales of sword and kings, they are mirrors. They ask what kind of person you become when you are strong, what kind of person you become when you are praised, what kind of person you become when you are wounded, and what kind of kingdom you build inside yourself and around you when you choose which virtues will rule. In the next videos, we'll take each virtue on its own quest. We'll watch how the story tests it, reward it, and expose its counterfeits. It is interested in virtue as a fire, that which burns away what is false and reveal what is real. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep exploring the Arthurian tradition with me, consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel.